Good morning, folks. Hopefully you're having a blessed Sunday. Whatever way you apply that term. Um, so, one of the commonalities of my Sunday videos is that I tend to talk about slightly higher concepts, things that can, make your life better, but things that we should do to make our lives better. I've mentioned gratitude before, and speaking of which, I'm now at 60 subscribers on YouTube. I have 370 followers on Getter, and I'm apparently big enough for the Russian bots to notice me. Yay! Take your wins where you can get them, right? But one of the things I wanted to talk about today is to not try to take everything in isolation. If you're going through a bad time, try to do it with a bit of humor if you can. Try to do it with a bit of gratitude if you can. Gratitude for the struggle. That one's difficult, I'll be honest. But more than anything else, it's very important to try to find like-minded people, people who have a similar outlook to us. My God, that eyebrow is always doing that. There's probably a scar under there somewhere. To be honest, I've got quite a lot of scars. And every scar has a story. And they should. But actually comes to mind that if every scar has a story and every person has a scar, then people are really just a collection of stories. Which is true. And kind of deep. Anyway. Before I get rolling too fast, please like, share, subscribe, comment, and if you feel so inclined, there is a donation link below for my PayPal. I know, I'm not super fond of PayPal either, but right now it's the only game I've got. Speaking of PayPal, they're apparently being heavy dicks to Eric July, Young Rippa, the Rippaverse, and holding a significant sum of money back from his campaign for ISOM #1, which that's just bad customer service. He says he's getting a runaround. I don't disbelieve him. I had quite the runaround with. Oh, that's better. I don't know if you heard that on camera or not, but most of my upper back just cracked. Posture's an important thing, kids. Keep it in mind. But just turn this a little touch so I know I'm hitting the mic. But good customer service is extremely important if you're doing a business that's outward facing, or whatever the term is now for dealing mostly with public, with customers. I have to do good customer service in 2 of my businesses. When I do my freelance proofreading, right there the customer is absolutely important. I really don't like being this close to the camera, but apparently my voice is a little too soft for pickup a lot of the time. I'm considering picking up a mic. I'm gonna frig with the camera some more. Hang on. Just shifting the tablet in its cradle so that it's centered. I think that's better. But when it comes to customer service, There's nothing more important for a business that has customers. Whether you're a multinational money handling organization or you're doing small, I'm going to sneeze, whether you're doing small scale woodworking like I do, uh, you it's not so much that the customer is always right. A lot of businesses really can't go around absorbing those kind of costs on a large basis. Now, that said, um, when I give someone an estimate of what I think work will cost, I do try very hard to make sure that I leave some wiggle room. And there's two reasons for that. One, because you need room to negotiate. But two, you have to have, how to put it, a realistic assessment of what you expect it to cost. But also, you have to make allowance for, in woodworking, for example, the price of lumber can change very rapidly. Um, and as I understand it, it's actually dropping, so I may actually be able to pick up a few pieces for some of the projects I'm planning. Amongst them is, well, you can see some of the projects I have planned back here. And there was a drawing there yesterday, which I moved. Ah, okay. But good customer service is the fastest way to drive word of mouth. And word of mouth, the best advertising. If you're anything like me and you occasionally shop on, say, Amazon or anywhere online, one of the first things I do, excuse me, when I settle on a product that I want, whether it's a bandsaw or a chisel or a blowtorch, one of the first things I do is ensure that I've checked the customer reviews. And generally, if a product has very few customer reviews or has a significant portion of negative reviews, 1 and 2 stars, uh, I generally, I won't necessarily ignore them, but the very first thing I do is make sure I read at least 3 or 4 of those worst reviews before I ever look at a positive one. And it's probably saved me a lot of trouble. So, being that today is Sunday, and I generally do sermons on Sunday, so to speak, um, let's talk about gratitude and humor uh, and somewhat stoicism. Uh, Men, and this tends to absolutely irritate anyone, anyone in the feminist sphere, we'll say. Men don't tend to show their emotions a lot. We'll show them to people we trust, and generally, if we need to release emotion, we don't generally do it the same way women do. Women have, because they're generally much more sociable creatures, much more agreeable creatures, um, or much higher in agreeableness, I should say, to use a proper term. What tends to happen is that women will talk their feelings out amongst each other. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing for guys either, a lot of the time guys prefer to keep their emotions private. For example, if I had a dog that had died, I'm going to cry. You might not see it, but it's going to happen. And it's one of the few times that you will see men displaying difficulty with emotion. Not because we don't know how to deal with it, not because we've been socially programmed not to be able to deal with it. That's not it. It's because men don't necessarily cry in public because it's showing weakness. And like it or not, our genetic programming, our evolutionary biology has programmed us, because we're the guardian gender, to put it simply, or at least in easier to grasp terms. But because we're the guardian gender, we have to project strength. And while I've had times where I've absolutely broken down with girlfriends, my fiance, etc., very rarely do I have any sort of breakdown in public. And by breakdown, I don't mean going completely to mush. I mean just a break in the emotional dam. During my father's funeral, for example, that was extremely difficult. My grandmother's funeral. Yeah, generally, yeah. It's unusual for guys to show their emotions in public. Not because we don't want to be perceived as feeling or having emotions. It's because that display is contrary to our evolutionary biology, partly. Um, and partly because guys don't feel the same way that women do. And that's really hard even for me to explain. But I'm fairly certain every guy who's watching this understands where I'm coming from, what I mean by that. And there is a degree of toxicity to the way some men teach their children about emotion. In a lot of cases, what happens is the father will say to the son, you know, men don't cry. But really, that should be qualified with men don't cry where other people can see them. It's perfectly acceptable if you need that emotional release from tears to shed tears. Whether you're, say, a veteran remembering your comrades on Memorial Day or Armistice Day or Veterans Day or what do they call it here? Remembrance Day. That's important. But it's rarely done in public. And part of the male identity is, as I said, being that rock, being the emotional bulwark for others, children and women. For example, if your child's dog gets run over in the street, the father role is the comforter if you're the one that's there. But you'd also probably have to be the one cleaning up the remains and dealing with a distraught child, traumatized child. So it is not helpful to the child for the father to fall apart in that situation. And the best approach, in my opinion, and this is always my opinion, is to do what has to be done, whether it's comforting the child, taking care of the remains of the dog, or whatever. Get all that done. Then, if it is something that you need, cry. Then, when everything is sorted. As someone said, trying to remember if, I can't remember exactly what conversation I was having where this came up, but as someone said, the battlefield is no place for tears. And I think that's kind of where men and women differ quite a lot, is that, sorry, it's a new shirt, or at least new to me, and very rarely will you see me wear anything with a logo on it. But men tend to approach the world as if it's a battlefield. There are things that need to be done. Once those are sorted, once, I guess, the smoke clears and the guns have stopped, men then can give themselves permission to feel their emotions. I've heard it suggested that for women, their emotions are surface level and constantly imperative, which would explain motherhood and the mama bear response. Whereas for men, emotions are something that we can turn off, at least temporarily, at need, in order to get things done. But when people say things like, oh, men just don't feel emotions, or men are taught not to feel, no, that's not at all the way it works. We're not taught not to feel emotions. What we're taught, or should be taught, whether implicitly by society, by societal programming, or familial programming, or just explicitly taught, is that emotions have a place and a time, and that place and time is never in a crisis situation. When something has to be done, it has to be done. The emotion should not enter into it, not for guys. Now, obviously I'm not a woman. Good God, I'd make one ugly one, wouldn't I? But, sorry, just looking at myself on camera going, yeah, I'd make one hell of an ugly one. But, for guys, the ability to turn off your emotions is not unhealthy. It's generally just thinking about caveman era man, and had they been subject to extreme emotional response in a crisis, then the crisis could not have ended in anything other than disaster, which is probably why we bred out the way we did. So that was kind of a strange sermon, but anyway, I will be doing my live stream later tonight, probably 8:39 Newfoundland time. I'm going to push it back a half an hour. We'll call it 9 o'clock. I'm going to push it back a half an hour. Actually, I'm going to push it back an hour, so 9:30 Newfoundland time. And hopefully then the stream won't just die on me again, as it has a couple of times already. Not sure what I'm doing for a topic just yet. Probably do a news roundup, and of course the eternal AMA. Other than that, like, share, subscribe, comment, donate if you feel. And, yeah. You know, go out, feel a little gratitude. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. So, rise and rise again until lambs become lions. Love you all. Take it easy. Bye-bye.